You look at the pseudo legendaries Pokemon has produced and you're immediately impressed. They're not quite legendaries, but they are clearly a cut above other Pokemon, with increased versatility, power, and overall excellence. It helps that many of them possess the rare, coveted Dragon typing, though of course, Tyranitar and Metagross are no less impressive for not having it. Pseudo-legends are often among the best, most impactful Pokemon in the game, or at the very least, utilize their impressive stats and move pools to create a valuable niche for themselves. And if all that wasn't enough, they are quite imposing in design. Even the affable Dragonite can be intimidating. We first see these pseudo-legendaries at the later stages of the in-game, wielded by the final boss trainers like the Elite Four and Champion, and then we see them dominating the competitive scene once we move on to that. However, of the 10 pseudo-legendaries that exist with the release of Generation 9, there is one notable exception to all that has just been covered: Goodra. Goodra is far and away the worst pseudo-legendary Pokemon in a competitive sense. And even design-wise, in my opinion, it is not as commandingly impressive as the other 9. Now, that is not to say that Goodra is a bad Pokemon, far from it. I mean, even Ash Ketchum's Goodra in the Pokemon anime was really good. It merely does not stand out, which is notable because it's in a rare elite group of Pokemon specifically regarded for how much they stand out from others. So why has Goodra failed to live up to a high standard and precedent set by the other pseudo-legendaries? Before I answer that question, I propose a question to you. What is the pseudo-legendary you believe is the worst? Let me know down below, and please let me know why. I'm interested in reading your comments, and if you do enjoy these discussion videos, I'll upload them 3 to 4 times a month, and I'll upload competitive Pokemon every single day, so feel free to subscribe. When you look at the other pseudo-legends, you notice that they are incredibly imposing offensively. Goodra, though it packs a solid base 110 special attack stat, is nowhere near its fellows in this regard. Yes, Como also tops out at 110 attack, but Como also has Dragon Dance, Clanger's Soul Blaze or Clanger's Soul depending on the generation, and an amazing secondary fighting stab in close combat. Goodra cannot boost in the same way at all, and in fact is the only pseudo-legendary without a secondary typing, meaning it only has one stab. Okay, you may think, that's fine. Several pseudo-legendaries are known for their defensive excellence, especially Tyranitar and Como, while Garchomp, Metagross, Salamence, Dragonite, and Hydreigon have all been known to go bulky with superb results as well. This would be Goodra's niche then, right? After all, that base 150 special defense stat is astounding. It's true, Goodra tanks special hits incredibly well. The problem is that, unlike the other pseudo-legendaries that can be used defensively, Goodra lacks the valuable utility moves that would allow it to make the most of its bulk. Como, Tyranitar, Metagross, and Garchomp all set up Stealth Rock, while Dragonite, Salamence, and Hydreigon reliably heal with Roost. Hazards allow them to turn their defensive switch-ins into progress. Recovery allows them to act as defensive switch-ins repeatedly. Goodra has neither, while also not being too threatening offensively. So if it wants to play defensively, it's going to switch in, take a hit, then not do much to the opponent in return. I must stress this is comparative terms, by the way. Goodra is still a fine Pokemon capable of hitting plenty hard, but certainly not on par with the pseudo-legendary counterparts. I would also like to note that if Goodra had been released in Generation 5's Black and White, it would have been a fantastic and almost unkillable wall with its hydration ability combined with Infinite Rain and its move Rest. Rest would put it to sleep, healing it to full. Hydration at the end of the turn would let it wake up, and it would now have reliable recovery, but it simply came out a generation too late, where fairy types were also introduced. So, if you don't want to use Goodra for defensive purposes since you're not satisfied by its lack of ability to take hits and dish them out in return, you want to use it offensively, right? Well, Goodra's going to disappoint you there too. Again, comparatively, it's not the slowest of the pseudo-legends, but it is the slowest of the pseudo-legends that has no move to boost its speed. In fact, the only other pseudo-legend that doesn't boost its speed is Hydreigon, whose base speed stat is quite solid. And even that was answered in Generation 8 when they gave Hydreigon Dragon Dance. Nor does Goodra possess a solid enough defensive profile to launch its strong hits repeatedly as the likes of Tyranitar would, and it still isn't hitting that hard. Spectrical Meteor is as strong as it'll get, but it's no Hydreigon in that regard, who is stronger and faster and has a great secondary stat. The similarly strong Dragapult and Como can boost their speed as well, while also packing their own excellent secondary stab. And of course, Dragapult is one of the fastest Pokemon around to begin with. Not having secondary typing hurts Goodra quite a bit, as every other pseudo-legendary gains a ton of mileage from theirs at least offensively or defensively, though often both. Just look at the newly released Baxcalibur. Goodra comes close with its Sapsir ability giving it grass immunity, which is certainly nice. The problem is that it already handles grass moves well. Of course, the Spore immunity is valuable, but the problem is that once it switches in and absorbs the Spore, Goodra's just not that threatening after. The one saving grace for Goodra might be when its Hisuian form is released in this generation. It will finally gain a secondary typing then, and that typing is Steel, which is one of the best ones it could have asked for, blessing Goodra with a multitude of valuable resists while becoming neutral to Ice and Fairy and gaining a secondary stab. One destroys the Fairy types immune to its Dragon Stab at that. Hopefully, Goodra will be more deserving of the title Pseudo Legendary in a competitive sense when the time comes. Until then, it's the odd one out, and it's not even close. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you let me know by leaving a like and subscribe to the channel, and also check out my previous video about Luxray, Pokemon's greatest tragedy.